Hello guys, it's me Karthik. Hope you guys are doing really good. So, in our previous video, we have learned about Spring Batch with the help of the example. Like we've taken a CSV file, we dumped that into the table, right? So, let me show you that. So, here is the video on that same example, and we have covered entire framework as well. Spring Batch, like from beginning till the end we have implemented, right? So I'm going to cover the architecture side of Spring Batch today, because if you can understand this clearly, it's very easy to code in Spring Batch. I mean, it's very easy to implement a Spring Batch. That's why I wanted to take some time and explain this. Okay, so if you go from left to right, that is how the execution will start. If that means from job launcher till the item reader, that's the flow of execution. If you come from right to left, that means from item reader, processor writer to the job launcher, that's how you code, because this item reader, processor writer are the small independent modules, are small independent components. So those you wanted to code first, and you wanted to plug them into the step and the job likewise, right? So in this tutorial we are going to go from left to right, how the execution will happen. Okay, so there is something called job launcher in Spring Batch that will going to trigger your job with the help of run method. Okay, let me show you that. How do you identify is, open your project where your Spring Batch been implemented, look for job launcher, and this job launcher will have a method called run. That means it is going to run that particular method. Okay, and it is, what it is going to do, it is going to trigger the job launcher will going to trigger the job by passing certain parameters, like at what time you wanted to start likewise. Okay, and also it is going to store that information in the repository. That means what, it is going to store that information in the database. Okay, so let me show you that piece first. So I have opened my database. If I search with a Spring batch, you could see here there were certain tables which were created. How these were created? Did we created everything? No, we are not going to create them. Those were created from a property that we define. Okay, so if you open application properties, here there is something called JDBC initialize schema always. Okay, so with this what is going to happen is, it is going to use the existing schema with the data source that we have defined in our project. Okay, so that data source it will going to pick, and it will create the tables for us. Okay, and these are the tables. If you go inside this like this, okay, so when I start the job, each entry will come. Okay, job execution ID, what is the version, and job instance, and what is the status of that, whether it got completed or not, if it got failed, why it failed, and the job execution context, all the details, the params that we are passing. Okay, and job related, step related, all those things will be saved in this repository. You don't need to create anything. That's the good thing about using Spring Batch. Okay, now from job launcher you're going to have a job is nothing but the, you know your entire workflow, like reading from CSV file, then saving that into the database is my entire workflow. Okay, so that is going to start. Okay, inside this, can I able to divide this into the small steps is nothing but the steps here. So each job can have one or more than one steps. Okay, so again each step will have three components, like reader, processor and writer. Okay, so let me show you that piece. Here I am here, and I have created the job, right? So if I go to my batch config, okay, here is my job, and in my job how I am creating the job with the help of job builder object, which is presented in Spring Boot 3, guys. From Spring Boot 3 onwards, you have to use job builder. Okay, if you are using the lesser version of Spring Boot at below 3, then there were some other methods, similar methods, something called, I think, factory methods, job factory methods. Here this is a job builder method, and you need to give the name and job repository. This name will be saved in your job. Okay, job details, like I think it got stuck, but yeah, those details will be saved. And from job, I think now it got open. Now you could see these are the names, right? Job names. And from job, I'm going to call the steps. Okay. Again, the step, this is my step method, right? Step method again will have three components. What are those three components? Item reader, processor, and writer. Now you could see here we have the reader, we have the processor, and we have the writer. Okay, then we are telling the batch like take 10 records at a time with the help of chunk method. Okay, so it will take 10 records at a time. Instead of processing one record, it will take 10 records. And we are telling Spring Batch to use the asynchronous nature. So this will create a train concurrent threads to us, and each thread will pick 10 jobs. Okay, so that is about the step is a combination of three: reader, processor, and writer, right? Now let's take an example of reading a CSV file, dumping that into the table. Reading will comes into the item reader step, right? Item reader will have all the reading related, like where is my CSV file, how the CSV file is separated, is it using comma, is it using type, right? And how I can understand the CSV file. Okay, so if you go here item reader, so what we have where the CSV file is located, what is the name, and how many lines I need to skip. Why I need to skip? Because sometimes CSV file can have the header, that's why I need to skip that. Okay, then I am mapping that CSV file into the bin. Okay, this is a CSV file, right? I'm mapping that into the bin with the help of comma separator and to the bin, right? So this is about item reader. If you want more code related, please watch my previous video. Okay, now coming to the processor. Processor will have each record it is going to process, and if you have some business scenarios like this data only I need to take, that you can do it with the help of processor. Okay, and I'm implementing the item processor. Okay, this will have input and output, okay, inbound and outbound, and you need to implement a method called process method here. Okay, now coming back to the item writer is nothing but where do you want it to store once you have processed, where do you want to store your data. That is about the item processor or the item writer, if I have to say properly. Okay, so item writer will be here. Okay, so I am using the repository and I wanted to store in database, right? So this is my repository. I wanted to use the save method to store the data into the database. Once everything is successful, then we have the data here. Okay, so whatever that is there in the CSV file, we have it here because we are not filtering out anything in our item processor. If you wanted to filter, you can use the item processor. Okay, so this is a small architecture, guys, I want you guys to focus on. Like job launcher will going to launch my job. Each job can have multiple steps, each step can have three more steps again, like item reader, item processor, item writer. Okay, if you can understand it, it's easy for us to code with Spring Batch. Hope it's useful for you guys.